Hello, everyone. Welcome to a more regularly scheduled than normal retake, as opposed to our special episode. Joe and Alex talk about LCK. Well, welcome back to Retake League of Legends Edition, brought to you by EGF Media. Tonight we'll be taking a look at the LCS promotion tournament. We'll be taking a look at specifically the NA one, as we do have a lot of matches to cover. So we're going to be talking about NA tonight, and then EU on another night. We're also going to be making predictions about the upcoming NA and EU playoffs. Tonight, I am joined by Joe Sismock Frazier and Owen Airship Bishop Kruger. Joe, why don't you go say hello?
Greetings.
And Owen, why don't you give a little wave, even though people can't see you?
Just pretend I'm waving.
Yeah, just pretend he's waving. I apologize that we're. Oh crap! I apologize that we're all pictures. We've had a lot of technical difficulties with webcams recently, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. But we're working to rectify the issue so that you can see our pretty faces one day in the future.
Yes, welcome to the special imagination edition of Retake.
Yeah, tonight Commando Jarvan, Pikachu with swimming goggles, and a blonde-haired Boo are going to be talking about League of Legends. And with that, we're going to move on to our first segment of the week, which is where we're going to talk about the tournament week. We saw some great matches this week in the promotion tournament, so now we are going to go to our guests to see what their top picks of the week from, not the top picks. We're going to be discussing each game individually. We're going to go one at a time through each of the games, and we're going to talk about them each one at a time. We're not going to talk about each individual game. We're going to be talking about the match. Sorry, let me clear that up. Like, we'll just be like, okay, in this match, you'll get the gist of it. So the first match we're going to talk about is Echo Fox versus Team Liquid Academy. Now, I was really hyping up Team Liquid Academy to come into the LCS, but apparently both of my apparently Joe had a little bit of a differencing of opinion. Joe, why don't you talk about that?
So, I actually did think TLA was going to win this, but having seen enough of TLA in the Challenger scene, and especially in the matches against C9 Challenger, they were very inconsistent. If you actually watched the C9 Challenger games, it was just TLA would either stomp or get stomped, and it was, kind of the same deal here, just very inconsistent. And in Game 5, when it mattered, Echo Fox was the better team. Froggen picked Lux. It was pretty cool. That's pretty much all there is to that. It wasn't all that interesting of a match, in my opinion.
Owen, what did you think of Echo Fox versus TLA?
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised Echo Fox was able to beat TLA. I don't know too much about the team, but seeing the roster, it looked pretty stacked, and Echo Fox hasn't had a good run at all. I agree with Joe that the Lux pick in Game 5 was awesome, and it's probably the only game out of the series worth watching. Now, additionally, TLA target banned Froggen 2 to 3 bans every single game. And I'm not sure if that was a good idea, and it allowed TLA to survive to Game 5, because, surviving to Game 5 was actually pretty understandable. I mean, that's a good performance overall. I mean, you won 2 games, you lost 2 games, you messed up Game 5. But I'm not sure if that decision to target ban Froggen so heavily, granted he is the cornerstone of Echo Fox, but I don't know if that was necessarily the best way to do things.
I agree with a lot of the statements here. But for me personally, like a lot of the weirdness came from like odd priority picks. I mean, I'm a big support player, and I don't know why Soraka was picked all 5 games here when I'm looking at some of these bans, and Braum's open, Alistar is open, Taric was open for a good portion of them. Like Karma was banned almost every game that she wasn't picked. And I'm seeing like Soraka 3 times in a row for Echo Fox, and then 2 times in a row for Team Liquid Academy. I don't know if I'm missing something here about Soraka. Maybe it was the Forbidden Idol changes, but like I don't know if I'm 100% convinced as of yet for Soraka.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to move on to our second match of the NA series, which was Echo Fox versus Phoenix One. this was actually kind of surprising for me because I personally thought Echo Fox was definitely better than Phoenix One, but Joe, why don't you go ahead and tell me what you thought of this match?
So, in my opinion, Phoenix One was one of the guarantees to go on in the back half of the split. They really looked more like a playoff team than a relegation team. They couldn't make up for the fact that they lost every game in the first half of the split. But towards the end, they were looking better than NV and Apex, in my opinion. So they should have been a 7-6 team. So coming in and then playing Echo Fox or TLA, I was really expecting the 3-0, and that's what ended up happening. Anori showed up. Zig showed up. It was pretty much as expected, you know?
All right, and Owen, what did you think of this Echo Fox versus Phoenix One game?
Yeah, I agree. It was a pretty clear-cut 3-0. Phoenix One did become the only team to lose to Echo Fox during the main season, but that was very early, and since then, P1 has made massive roster improvements and massive team coordination and individual skill improvements. So overall, I feel this is a great way to show that what's come next year for Phoenix One in the spring split should be great, assuming the roster survives. I mean, we may see some roster changes. There's always a bit of a shuffle around in between the splits, but I'm hoping the P1 can stick with these players and really show what they've got in the next split from a fresh start, not trying to play catch up with their previous performance.
All right, I agree with most of that. Once again, I'm looking at this and I just see more Soraka. I don't know. It must be a comfort pick for someone. But, I don't know. Whatever. NRG versus Cloud9 Challenger is our next game to talk about. And you guys definitely had a lot to say about this one. Definitely more than the previous ones. So I'm going to start with Joe. Joe, why don't you tell me about what you thought about this game?
So this was really where the tournament started getting interesting. This was less as easily anticipated or as expected as the other results. I mean, I have my questions about Echo Fox TLA, but I wasn't overly convinced either team was going to come back. It was going to make it all the way through. So when I saw Energy C9, it was very much a representation of where Cloud9 Challenger stood in regards to LCS. That's kind of how I was looking at it, because we were seeing a bunch of old veteran players. We were seeing Balls and Lemon Nation and High go against some excellent Korean players when they were in Korea, and against NRG, who had more recent LCS experience. And it was not good. GBM has no champion pool that's relevant anymore. He's playing like Ari, and he lost the High horribly every single game. Their drafts weren't very good. Quas had Maokai, I think, at least one game. Maybe it was 2 games, but I know he had it at least once. And their team play was really bad. When they team fought, it looked like if you go into solo queue and you watch 5 players and they were just running around like headless chickens. It was terrible. Cloud9 Challengers, I don't know how. I can't say, oh, this team will do well in LCS, because I don't know what the team will be after it's sold. But it was definitely a very bad showing from NRG, and that showed even more in the series versus Echo Fox.
I mostly agree with that.
Yeah, we're gonna move on to Owen. Owen, tell me what you think about this game.
Yeah, just to use Game 1 as an example, both teams looked fairly even in the early game. I mean, First Blood didn't even happen until 17 minutes. So it was definitely a very macro-oriented game, and you had Cloud9 Challenger winning in farm, but NRG had taken a dragon, and there's this huge team fight at bot lane. It's a 5v5, and C9C gets engaged on and executes perfectly. This insane coordination, and NRG looked like a bunch of solo queue players that you'd like stapled together using packing peanuts and paper clips and Elmer's glue. Like, they definitely have individual skill to succeed. I mean, they weren't outright losing any lanes. Quas had a bit of a CS difference, but it was a Gnar versus a Maokai matchup. You'd kind of expect that. But it just showed that Cloud9 Challenger's real strength was in their teamwork. And that's not to dismiss any of the individual skill of the players. I mean, you have their new jungler. His name escapes me. I think it's Contracts at the moment. New young talent. And he performed amazingly in all 3 games. And I'm really excited to see what he can do. I'm just worried that if this team is sold, and a lot of the players on that roster, I know Elimination has been an important support staff member for Cloud9 for years. I know that High's been trying to retire, are these players going to be able to perform at the same level with a new roster? Because it's very likely that changes will happen. I'd rather they didn't. I'm excited to see what this team can do under different management, under a different roster, but I just don't know how well it's going to work out.
So I will add this very quickly. I know for a fact Hai cannot, at current moment, play for another team other than C9 because he has partial ownership of the Cloud9 organization, and it would create a conflict of interest.
So he would have to sell his stake if
he would either need to go to another Cloud9 team or retire or whatever, become a sub.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll see Cloud9 Challenger again with Hai leading the banner in a new team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious that this team would have such a fairly solid like team organization together, like a very tight-knit group. You know, when 3 out of 5 of your members were on a team together for the longest time, like it's kind of hard to not get that synergy, you know what I mean? Like you just need to attack really instead of trying to get 5 people to work together, like, you know, with like a brand new team, you only really need to get 2 people to work with the group of 3. And Altec already has some LCS experience. I'm just blanking on the team name. He wasn't in Dignitas.
He was on Gravity and he was on Winter Fox.
Yeah, Winter Fox. Oh my god. Oh man, that takes me back. What was that? It's like season 4?
EG2, but yes.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, EG, yeah, because he took over for Yellow Pete. Now I remember. Yep. But yeah, it's really only getting it like Altec already knows like the like kind of pressures of being in the LCS, and he's kind of comfortable on the stage and stuff like that. And on top of that, like he already knows what's expected of him being in an LCS team. Contracts is really the only person here without like a whole like lot of experience. I'm taking a look at him, and yeah, the only games he's been in like a big circuit is the NA LCS Spring Promo. So yeah, that's.
Well, he hasn't turned 17 yet. He's not eligible for LCS.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that. How young is this guy?
He's 16. He turned 17 before spring.
Oof. Wow, I'm excited to see this then.
Yeah.
It could be some fresh blood for the NALCS where we've seen a lot of old guard just staying in.
But yeah, I think the team as it is right now is pretty solid, and they had some solid games in the promotion tournament, as we are going to continue talking about. Maybe no, that was their last game. But yeah,
didn't we have Echo Fox v NRG?
Yeah. The last game that Cloud9 Challenger was involved in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But we are going to move on to that last game. We are going to move on to Echo Fox versus NRG. And Joe, why don't you go ahead and give us a rundown of what you thought of this game was.
So this was it. This was the big match. This is the match of the year. We had Rick Fox versus Shaquille O'Neal. It finally happened.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And it really was a surprise match for me. I think any analyst had you asked going into this tournament would have said, yes, Echo Fox is going to be relegated. And that's not what ended up happening. Echo Fox ended up playing well, actually. Especially Froggen and Keith, they both stepped up a lot. I thought, Keith went up and he played excellent. I've been waiting for him to do that all split. He was the highest ranked challenger player in Korea from the end when they practiced, and he finally showed up. It took a long time, but he did it. And all of Energy's problems that I mentioned before were once again there. The shining light for that team is Santorin, who just left today. So that's no longer there, and GBM played absolutely nothing like you've seen in Korea. He played Xerath one game. He played Xerath. And it was just all around. Echo Fox looked like a good team, and NRG looked lost and confused.
Yeah, I feel like looking at this, like Xerath, Ziggs, and LeBlanc. Like LeBlanc you can make like an argument for, but Xerath and Ziggs seems just a little odd. If you can make it work, like maybe, but but we're gonna move on to Owen to make sure he gets some time to speak.
So we don't. Can't.
Oh boy.
Yeah, not allowed. All right, Owen, go ahead.
That was a super rough week for NRG. I mean, I'm not super surprised Echo Fox managed to pull it together at the last minute and prove they deserve to stay in the LCS, because for some reason these NA teams just can't do anything until they're about to get relegated or lose some sort of tournament. I just don't understand why they couldn't have done it sooner. Like Toucan has arrived, Keith for president 2016. I mean, this looks amazing going into next split, and I know I've said that about a lot of other teams, that everybody seems to have like suddenly gotten it together and looks great coming into the next split, assuming there's no roster changes. But I'm still kind of concerned. I don't know a whole lot about Echo Fox's managerial structure or what support staff they have. I've dug around on their website, and I know we've got their relatively new coach who replaced Kopp back in, I think, week 5 of the LCS.
Having time.
And I know that Rick Fox has been trying to, or at least has stated that he wants the LCS to move into a franchising situation, which I don't agree with. And I'm kind of worried that that's not a super great direction, but that's a discussion for another day. The main thing is Echo Fox has definitely gotten better. I mean, that's just completely clear to me. Like, this is not the team we saw a week ago or 2 weeks ago. This is like a completely new confidence, and if they can roll this into something great, they can do amazing in next split. But it's going to be very dependent on what type of support they have from the organization to be able to really, really take this to the next level.
Yeah, I can agree with that a lot. I mean, like, Rick Fox seems like a super sweet guy. Like, every single time there's an interview with Rick Fox, he's always like super enthusiastic about esports. He's just super into it, having such a good time, and he's like an old basketball guy. And you know, out of all the old basketball guys, we've got Rick Fox and Shaquille O'Neal. There's probably like thousands of people who have played basketball over the past, like, I don't know, 20 years, I guess, maybe 30 years. But like we have two, and you know, and getting on board with the esports stuff, and it's really cool to see, you know, them getting involved in this capacity and just having so much fun with it. And I think that's super cool about Rick Fox. I don't know, that doesn't, you know, needless to say, talk about the performance of his team, because, you know, over the split, like, the Echo Fox did not have a good time, and, you know, it was odd to see like this superstar like Froggen, you know, being at the bottom of the of the table, you know. But I think that with his attitude, he'd be able to get, like, if his team were like, yeah, we need like a better coaching staff. I'm not saying anything about their coach, you know. I'm just saying, like, if the team was like, oh yeah, we need this, Rick Fox would be like, yeah, I'll get you that, yeah, no problem. Like, I think he'd be like that.
There's no doubt in my mind that Rick Fox's heart is in the right place. I'm just a little concerned that his head might not be in the right place, and he might not. But again, we have yet to see what will happen. Only time can tell how well Echo Fox will perform in the coming years.
Yeah.
Can I say my favorite Rick Fox moment?
Sure.
So,
yeah.
When, I think last split, when Froggen wasn't able to play, they did a pan of the crowd and they hovered over Rick Fox, and Rick Fox looked at the camera, smiled, and pointed to Froggen because he made like a this guy motion.
Yeah.
Because Froggen was the one that they should be looking at, because Froggen's the important member. They're not him.
Yeah.
That moment sticks in my head as something.
Yeah.
That he really does respect his players and know how to treat them correctly.
Yeah. They did like an interview with him, and they asked him to name 5 League of Legends champions, and he listed off all 5 of his players' favorite champions. It's like, oh yeah, I know Anivia because that's Froggen's favorite character. I know all these other kids. Like, this is this guy. This is Big's favorite character. This is Keith's favorite character. And he listed. I was like, oh man, that's sweet. Yeah. But we're gonna get off the Rick Fox train for a second. We derailed for a little bit. We got off the retake train and went onto the Rick Fox train. We need to jump back over to the previous train that we were on, as we need to move on to segment 2 of this big a little longer episode talking about promotions. We're going to move on to predictions. Now, with all these with lots of matches coming up, we're going to make predictions about who is going to move on in the EU and NA playoffs. Now, I believe we just have quarterfinals this week, and we're going to move on to semis and then finals next week. I think that's correct. Anyone double check that for me? Can I get a...
It's quarters this week, and then next week is semis, and then the week after is third place and finals.
Okay.
Really milking this for all it's worth, right?
Yeah, way to go.
I would like to mention that Korea is 1 week long. That's how long Korea's playoffs are.
Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and make some predictions. In NA, I think that Cloud9 will be able to beat Team Envy. They have a lot of better individual players. Sneaky and Meteos have been some of the best players in like the entire league, and as well as have a better regular season in the Cloud9 versus Team Envy matchup. They also play really well together. I think that team is very, very good. Envy has been on a slump lately, even though they were like top 3 team in like the first half of the like top 3, top 4 team in the first half of the league. They've been in the slump lately and gone down. Like they nearly didn't make it to promotion. Like, I don't know what tiebreaker happened between them and Apex, but they were like, okay, Apex, you're 7th place, and Team Envy is 6th place. So, I don't know. But the other game to talk about is Counter Logic Gaming versus Team Liquid, and I want to go with my heart here and not my brain, and I really want Team Liquid to move on so they can get 3rd place and break the curse. This is the first step numero uno. And they need to get past step numero. It's going to be a hard one. CLG is, although they've been in a slump lately, they're still a pretty good team. And I think Team Liquid will be able to beat them. Over in Europe, we have, I predict H2K and Giants moving on, just because Giants have been on an upswing lately and have more wins under their belt over the course of the season over H2K. But that match could go either way, considering, Giants have gone back and forth with Unicorns of Love, who they're going up against, and then H2K is definitely stronger than Fnatic. Even after getting back Yellow Star, Fnatic haven't been doing too well, and I think H2K with Forgiven looked very good during their tiebreakers. With that, we're going to move over to Joe. Joe is going to give us his predictions for NA and EU playoffs coming up this weekend.
So before I begin, I'd like to mention that there's huge mid lane swap changes, and it makes it very difficult to give a very accurate prediction because I have no idea how well teams are going to adapt to them.
Right.
So in North American quarters, I think that C9 and CLG are going to move on. Envy barely made playoffs. It was entirely because of their excellent first half of the split. If I was to judge them entirely only on the second half, they do not deserve to be in playoffs at all. I do not think they have a chance in hell to beat C9. C9 3-0s them, easy peasy, moves on to the next round. CLG versus Liquid is a little bit harder. I think CLG is going to win, but Liquid can definitely come through because Dardoch is a better jungler than Xmithy. He's not infinitely better, but he's better at carrying. And that would be where they'd have to win on. Dardoch will need to get Phoenix ahead, and they'll need to carry from there because it's really that's the X factor. It's a matter of Dardoch. And Liquid has had problems with Fabi in particular, who has been doing 0 damage overall, and Matt has only looked average. Whereas CLG can consistently cover the flaws of their own players, which is what has made them so good for the past couple of splits. So I'm going to give it to CLG, but I can see Liquid winning. EU, I think Giants and Fnatic will move on. Giants improved over the split. They've looked better. In particular, their 2 Koreans, Knight and Sunstar, have looked better. I think it's Knight and Sunstar. And UL has had their ups and downs. They've looked better at the end, but I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Giants. I don't think they'll be consistent enough over a 5-game series to win 3 of them. Fnatic versus H2K, you gotta kind of roll the dice. Fnatic has a new coach, whoever. They don't have Daylor anymore. I don't know who it is. And that is the big question mark for me in that, because we already know Prawley's a very good coach, but H2K tends to have a style and do it really well and not have more plans. If Fnatic gets a coach that plans multiple tactics and can think around Prawley's one good strategy, then that will be what beats H2K.
Right, I can agree with most of that stuff. Owen, why don't you move on to what you think is going to come up for the NA and EU playoffs this weekend?
Well, it's really hard to predict stuff right now. At least with the promotion tournament, nothing went to plan except for Cloud9 Challenger. So hopefully the playoffs are going to be more predictable. I think Cloud9 is going to beat Envy hands down, and CLG beats Team Liquid. Team Liquid beats CLG. I have no idea what's going to happen. Definitely going to a game 5, and if I was forced to pick one or the other, barring anyone completely throwing like all of the games and just being off, I'd say CLG is going to choke on game 5 and lose. Not because I think Team Liquid's the better team, but because CLG has a history of not doing well this split, and I feel like that trend will continue. But again, playoffs seem to be the exception to every rule, and nothing goes according to plan, and it makes predicting things extremely difficult and my life harder than it should be. But EU, just as silly as NA. Giants, I would consider favored to win over Unicorns, and I think Fnatic will pull out a choke and lose to HGK. Now, that matchup also extremely volatile, and anything's possible, so who knows? I don't know. I'm guessing. Predictions for the semifinals next week should be much easier to make, but again, if everything gets messed up this week, my prediction will be off next week as well. And playoffs is where dreams are created, killed, and then created again. So just keep in mind, anything can happen, and if I was a gambling man, I would stay the heck away from this year's playoffs.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that, because Joe's touched on it at the beginning of his prediction and said the major lane swap changes from 6.15 patch are going to come into effect. And on top of that, like, we have like these, 50-50 matchups in both NA and EU in regards to like TL versus CLG, Giants versus ULL, and H2K versus Fnatic. We have these 50-50 matchups on top of a huge, meta change that we could sit here and posture. And I sounded pretty confident myself, but most of my facts are based upon a fairly stable meta. There were no huge changes during the split that would cause people to completely just flip their playstyles on their head. These guys have had a little bit longer to practice with the 6.15, and gladly that I don't think finals is going to be played on 6.16. If we see Kled in the finals, I'm going to be very upset.
Oh boy.
That's not good. But besides the point. I think that if our predictions are as good as anyone else's at this point, because we have a lot of volatile matchups like Owen said, and we have a huge meta shift like Joe said. But I think with that we can call it an episode. Thanks everyone for joining. As always, matches start on Thursday and end on Sunday, starting around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that does it for today. I'd like to thank Joe and Owen for joining me today. If you liked our show, please be sure to follow us on Twitch. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube in the links below. And from all of us here at EGF, thanks for watching. You can join us next Monday at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. 9:30 p.m., not a.m. We're not getting up early for this shit. I'll see you guys next time. My name is Alex Shinkari Erdenberger, and thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.